Now, a lot of you have 30, 40 acres or less. And this applies, doesn't matter if it's 100 acres, 200 acres. You know, I manage property and look at property. It doesn't really matter if we're looking at a 600 acre parcel, 800 acre, we looked at up to 4,000 acres, or a 5 acre parcel, 10 acre parcel, 8 acre parcel. Some of my favorite parcels in the past, 8 acres, 10 acres, because you can do so much with so little when you obey this concept and you understand this concept that I'm going to talk about as it applies to deer hunting. And first is a setup. You know, this property right here, we're only going to look at half of this 77 acres. So we're talking about 30, 35 acres. And this property starts up high and goes down to a ravine. So let's say this property was split someday and this is all we had to work with up here in this location. It's really critical to understand the setup, meaning that we have a small hunting plot over to the side over here we call Leo's plot. We have a redneck blind hidden in the brush. One spot we've actually thought about hunting and creating a water holes on the other side of Leo's plot, near the power lines. Dylan, I think, were you with me together? We were scouting, I think it was an oak or a giant hickory.
I thought it was a cherry, but I could be wrong.
Oh yeah, it was a giant cherry. That we were talking about putting a stand in, having a water hole because it's a brushy area. We don't need to do that because we have so many stands throughout the rest of the property. We don't need to use that area, potentially push the deer off the side that, but I would use it if it was just this parcel. Leo's plot is a pass-through plot, meaning they're on the way to this larger logging plot, we call it right here. This is closer to an acre. Leo's plot is closer to 1/3 of an acre. So we're trying to create just a pass-through with all clover over there. And then we have our diversity planting here with 2 different types of greens, the brassicas, the power greens, the fall greens, the WHS fall greens, and then we have corn. Then over here on the other side, we have Jim's plot, we call it. And it's a larger 1 acre food plot. And these all work together to funnel the deer between the plots from small plot to big plot. But we have Leo's plot, we have a stand there. Right here, you have Jack's Tower stand behind us, where you can hunt this more of a gun season, but you can see this mock stripe is only about 25 to 27 yards away. So it's a good bow shot out of Jack's Tower stand. So we can hunt that. We actually have a trail through the corn right here. And then for gun, we can shoot to the back. The next stand is right down over here. It's called Ben's Water Hole. And at Ben's stand, that's a great morning stand, evening stand, blowing our scent up into a switchgrass field where you don't expect deer. You wrap around to Jim's plot. We're going to add a tower stand there so we can hunt that whole full food plot. And it's a large plot. It's all the same level. Here we can sneak in from the back a little bit, just hunt this front little corner. There is more of a gun season muzzleloader stand. And then around the corner from there, we have what we call the power line stand. It's in between Jim's plot and our blade water hole. And then finally we have the blade water hole stand where Tyler shot his buck out of last year. I call those complementary stands, especially when you group 2 or 3 together, because you're hunting the same movements, but you're getting in with different winds, different wind direction, morning, evening, hunting the food sources more in the afternoon, in between, more in the morning hours. That's why I like a water hole stand on the other side of Leo's might be a perfect morning stand. We're not hunting on the food, we're not getting in there, but it's a small hunting plot and just a pass through, so we can use that for morning too. But bottom line is they're all complementary of each other, meaning different purposes, morning, evening, and different winds. That's really critical to understand that. We have several stands spread out, so what is that, 7 or 8 stands, which is typical for 30, 35 acres. Now we have to protect it. What I mean by that is we have a beautiful bedding point we call Cedar Point right over here. Great point. We've gone in there and planted switchgrass. We have hinge cuts. We have a bedding area cut off to the side. We have a cut bedding area going down the hill here. We have a cut bedding area at the blade water hole over there. And we're building that core and we have tons of bedding, but we can't hunt those areas. We have to protect those areas no matter how much I want to go out there. We have clients all the time, they'll say, you know, when is a time where you go in the middle of your property and just hunt? I'll say never. Because if you go in there and spook them one time, you ruin that whole 35, 40 acre property, let alone, you can ruin an 80 acre property, 100 acre, but let alone a 10 or 20 acre property, it's done. It's done for a few weeks often, and if you have a certain mature buck you're after, it can be done for the season. And that's how critical it is. It's not that hard. You have to have stand locations for different winds and different access. You have to protect that core in the middle and off to the side. In this case, it's a very long area. And I want to ask you, what is more important? protecting those bedding areas out here, which people typically associate with a quote sanctuary area, or protecting this food source? Well, if you spook out this food source and you make it a nocturnal food source because you overhunt it, those deer are not going to be in those bedding areas. If I happen to go down to a bedding area, let's say the bottom plot down below, and I come in from a different angle, which I wouldn't be able to do if this is only 35, 40 acres because we're coming across the other piece. Let's say I had legal easement to get in there. But if I spook out deer down there in a little pass-through area next to bedding area, and I have a mature buck that wants to hit this larger plot or Jim's plot on a daily basis, well, he'll just shift over and bed somewhere else and likely still continue hitting that food source. There's a lot of cover around here in locations. There's not a lot of cover with good food that lasts the entire season. That mature buck is willing to go find it. He has a home range several times greater than a doe family group. What that means is that doe family group is more a homebody. They're more likely to stay. They're more likely to get pressed around. They tolerate a little bit more hunting pressure, even a wise old doe, but a mature buck does not. And not only does he not tolerate the pressure, he knows where to go find food 2 miles away and go relocate for the rest of the season. A lot of times once he's there, he is not coming back. So if you spook out his favorite thing, that food source, every afternoon, again, he has lots of cover to go bed in most locations. And if he doesn't have quality food that he can go to in the afternoon, including yours, where he's not spooked, if he doesn't have quality bedding that he can go to without being spooked, including the bedding that's on your land, then he probably didn't make it to 3 years old. And so we're talking areas that maybe the 3-year-old is your oldest buck in the neighborhood. Maybe it's a 5 or 6-year-old. But bottom line, you have to give them the conditions of both bedding and food. And the food is the most critical. Because again, if I spook them out in this food source right here, they're not in any of these bedding areas that fan and serve to produce and have the potential to push deer into these food sources every single afternoon during the season. So really critical you understand that it's not just the assemblage of stands, the complementary stands where you have 3 or 4 different morning, evening, couple different wind directions, but that you protect the bedding areas and protect the food source. So what out of all of this is your sanctuary? Everything. Where I'm standing right here is sanctuary. And I say sanctuary when the season begins. You know, we have this week right here is kind of our last week towards middle of August, and then we'll let the property really lay low for a month before the season begins. This is that time of the year we begin to leave our property alone so that we can let this core area develop. And so we use the land in the off season. You know, right now it's trail cams and tree stands time, and we're really putting a lot of effort into that. We're getting our cameras to reveal, so we have solar panels on them. There's cameras out in the woods that Ben Stern from Tacticam has that have been running for over 2 years, and that's what we're really gearing towards, so we just don't have to get out there and mess with these cameras. The bottom line is, when we get into the season, our sanctuary is the entire property. This mock scrape right here, that stand location is as close as we get to it. So where I'm standing in about 2 weeks, and then through the end of the season, is pure sanctuary unless we go into here to retrieve a deer. We don't even come in this far. It's kind of like you take a line, draw it in between your stand locations into your access routes. Everything on the inside of your property should be sanctuary. And if you have to go into the middle of your property, getting back to clients that ask, when can I hunt the middle of my property? Never. Then you can see how that destroys 150 yards on either side of you. Deer can smell you, see you, or hear you. It's not sanctuary at all. People say, well, I don't go into that back corner 10 acres, but they blow their scent into it. Deer can see them walk by and deer can hear them. It's not a sanctuary. Enjoy the benefits of a sanctuary, because it doesn't matter if you have 10 acres, 40 acres, or 400 acres. When you set aside a high percentage of your land, always at least 50% of your land, to all deer all the time in a contiguous block. It doesn't matter if it's a circle, square, if it's oblong, if it's figure 8 shaped, whatever it might be. It doesn't really matter. The bottom line is, when you set those acres aside as at least 50% of your land, those areas include bedding areas, food sources, mock scrapes, travel corridors, water holes. You have that complementary stand assemblage where you can go in and pick away at your hunts and protect that core, protect those bedding areas, but also, most importantly, protect those food sources. Then great things happen, because not only are you building a great deer herd and the potential for a great deer herd, whatever that potential is in your area, but you're also going to build a great hunt. Protect that core, Small properties is even more critical. You can imagine with 1,000, 1,200 acres, you can make a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes are encompassed by the land, the size of the land that you own. But when it comes to these small parcels, you really have to be careful. And that's a strategy we use and apply to a lot of small parcels. And I encourage you, you know, Wes will be going to parcels this year. Wes is our full-time food plot seed salesperson, and he's a farmer, hunter, food plotter, and he works with me every day. Dylan's worked with me a lot since 2016. Feels like a lifetime, right, Dylan?
Yep.
It's terrible.
All good times.
Dylan goes to a lot of properties a year. Joe goes to properties and at Youngblood in Michigan, and then Kevin Smith as well out of Pennsylvania, Ohio. So we have a lot of people that can come out and design your habitat for you, and they adhere to the same concepts that I've been using for decades. And this is a big one. It really can help you this fall not only build a great herd, but a great hunt. I appreciate you guys watching the YouTube channel, but I don't know if everyone knows everything that we have to offer, whether it's on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, our website, or WHS Wildlife Blends, our seed company. Also Instagram you can check out. I'm very active on Instagram, putting strategies on there, photos of what we do every day. Much more active there than Facebook. But our seed, web classes, books, clients, articles. I have over 600 articles on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, everything whitetail strategy. Of course, we have hats on there, and then make sure to check us out on Instagram again. But lots of stuff to offer. We're always coming out with new things, and this isn't the end of it. We have more things coming soon. Make sure to check us out.